building certain products for certain use cases. So how many of you have such experiences? If it is too good for a orator to understand the level of at the participants, so that I can divert my presentations in that particular angle. That's why. No experience? This is the first time you're learning IoT? Yes? Okay. So 5G, first slide. I think it's good to talk on. Yeah. So 5G, the first slide tells about 5G. This is a fabric for the society. So you know that now the 5G has been rolled out, and now different companies are working on this 5G. They're exploring new use cases on that, like Airtel, your Reliance and all. But Reliance, they're calling this 5G as a true 5G. It's not the actual 5G, because we know that they're providing a data speed of about some 24 Mbps. Okay, but we are expecting 5G, like it need to deliver a data speed of about 25 to 30 times as that of the previous generations, like the 4G. So, but that's why Reliance is now calling the 5G as a true 5G. It's not the actual 5G. So, and also Airtel a few days before, they have they already told us like to the public that they're working on new use cases, and they'll be providing a data speed up to Gbps, so that these people can download a cinema within some 4 seconds at least. Okay, so so that's why 5G is just like an electricity. You can see everywhere. So that's the actual notion behind in developing such kind of a technology. So we do have a lot of generations from first 1G to 5G. The early generation was more focusing on the voice traffic, voice communication, how efficiently they can transfer the information, the voice traffic to one end, generated from one end to the next end. But later, with the help of 2G and all, they slowly migrated to the data services with the introduction of CDMA 2000 and all. Then slowly they migrated to 3G. 3G is the actual mobile broadband. We were using our mobile phones to explore the different the areas of internet through like mobile, with the introduction of 3G only. Then 4G came. We call it a long-term evolution. It can support a lot of services, but the major problem with the 4G is because it cannot satisfy the demands of the current billions of devices which will be connected to the internet. You know that according to NASSCOM, they have given in their white paper, like in India, at least in India, almost every person is having some 5 to 6 gadgets always connected to internet. Okay. So you can see like what is the population of India here, right? So more than people, we do have gadgets communicating with each other. They're exchanging a lot of data. So this 4G, their communication spectrum or the communication infrastructure cannot support such kind of services. So that's why we are migrating into 5G. And you know that every new evolution is happening 10 years. It takes at least 10 years, because 1980s, we had the 1G, and again 10 years after we introduced 2G. Now 2010 we have that 4G. Again 2020 we have this 5G. So next 10 years we will be having the 6G. But already the foundation stones have already been laid for 6G research and all by eminent institutes like IIIT, Madras and all, right? And here in IIIT, we also have a very small lab associated with the DADB. We are working on these 5G use cases and all. And yesterday, we talked to one Director General of ITUT, that is Telecommunication Union, about how we can start a 5G use case lab here in IIIT. Okay, so that I will, we will chat such kind of things after this presentation. So the fabric of society, why? Because we can see the influence of 5G in almost all sectors. Okay, so here you can see like in the case of smart city, Smart city is all about the well-being of that particular population, right? It is not about just connecting one entity to some other infrastructure, in the infrastructure. It's been connecting each and every entity which is a part of that particular smart city. Every entity means it could be an individual, it could be any organization, any particular module, a sensing module, which has been connected to internet. But in order to foster the services of the internet, we need sufficient speed. We need a kind of platform that could support a scalability at this level, because billions of devices have been communicating and they should not compromise on the speed, reliability, security, and safety. So for that, we need 5G. So that's why 5G always comes with some technology which is been involved in 5G. 5G is just a communication paradigm. It cannot stand alone. In order to fully explore the potential of 5G, we need some kind of services from Internet of Things kind of network, so that new user demands can be can meet. Okay, so here this is just an idea about how the mobile evolution have made for the last 10 years. So starting from 1G happened in 1980s, I told you, they concentrated on the analog voice. So you know that analog voice means insufficient security. Okay, so in first G, in 1G in 1980s, they were concentrating on analog voice. A lot of security issues were there, like tapping of informations and all, because no security techniques were, or privacy techniques were introduced into that 1G. So later they know that people's interest is more on data rather than just sending voice traffic. So come up with 2G after 10 years, because a lot of standardization procedures are there. We know that if we 3 people are sitting in a room and we are giving some topic and 3 people will be having 3 different opinions on that. So you can see like how a particular technology which has to be standardized worldwide. So it need at least 10 years. So that's why every time they take 10 years to standardize it, because so many interoperability issues are there. Interoperability issues with different vendors providing different hardware components, software, firmware, etc., etc. So that's why 2G came after 10 years, 1990, digital voice. So improvisations on voice technology. Then in 2000, 3G, the focus shift to mobile data. Then wireless internet. Then in 4G, mobile broadband and emerging expansion. Then 5G, now you can see a lot of, see, you can see a lot of use cases here, right? Smart factories, your virtual reality, augmented reality, what is that? Nowadays, it is known as IoD, that is Internet of Drones, flying drones. Now drones also, they have changed that terminology into flying drones, or IoD actually, Internet of Drones, okay? Because you can navigate IoD with exchange some information with the base station, with your server and all. You can control the different points. You can actually mark the points while they fly and exchange a lot of information. You know that these kinds of IoDs are usually useful for surveillance, right? Surveillance as well as rescue operations and all. So again, 5G, always such kind of a 5G paradigm should be needed for facilitating such kind of communication. So that's why this is known as a unified future-proof platform, supporting a lot of devices, different demands. You know that almost all services have different demands. Some services like smart healthcare, they need services like latency is an important part there, latency. So low latency, because nowadays, few hospitals in Kerala, in Cochin, we have the Aster Medicity, they are doing that robotic surgeries and all, right? Robotic surgeries. So they do not demand the physical presence of any doctor inside an operation room, right? So they are actually leveraging technologies like AR, VR with the help of 5G, because we know that there is no compromise on speed and as well as the precision and security. Okay. So we can see such kind of use cases later. So this is just an introductory slide on how we have came to 5G from 1980s. So racing towards 5G. So this is the provides broadband access. Like the important concept here is network slicing, because the entire 5G architecture is been split into different layers, as you have already studied in ISO, OSI, or TCP per IP and all. And also wireless network. You have some pre-perception hardware layer, you have some network layer, you have transportation layer and all. And here also we do have so many layers, because in order to distribute the functions, because each layer actually provide a different service, because low latency, then one layer will perform that. The security, safety, and other things, a separate layer has to take care of that, because smart factories as well as the smart healthcare, they all need reliability as well as latency. Okay, so such kind of services has to be put into one single layer. So that's why they have segregated the entire architecture into different network slices. So network slicing, creating separate wireless networks in the cloud and such things. Then it will be very crucial for self-driving cars. You know about Tesla and all, right? Autonomous cars. So we need there also the edge computing comes, because every time we cannot transfer your data into the cloud. We know that there is a time delay for that. Generating data, some time T1, uploading the data to the cloud, time T2, processing it with using some kind of machine learning models or something, creating some knowledge out of it. It takes some time again. And coming back to the actuator, you know that in IoTs and all, we do have major two different basic building blocks are there. The first one is the sensors, because it actually senses the physical quantity and converting into some electrical signals. Then you need the actuators to perform certain actions, depending upon what kind of commands which has been coming from sensors. So sensors to cloud, then cloud to again to actuators. So all these processors, it is like a closed chain. Again, feedbacks coming from your actuator to sensors again. You know that's why the data analytics is has a greater role in this. Predictive, prescriptive kind of analytics has a great role in this. So all these sensing, accumulation, processing, sending into the cloud for some temporary or permanent storage, then applying some machine learning models to convert those raw data. Many of the times it will be like unstructured data. So you need to make it to some structured data sometimes, or converting into some useful knowledge. So, you know, the temperature. Sensors may not be knowing what is this. We are just putting those sensor modules in some area, and they'll be providing some like 37 degree or 101 degree and all. So it is the role of that data analytics team to convert those things or understand this is the temperature, this is the pressure actually, and it's some in percentage level. We may not measure the temperature in percentage level, right? So it is a knowledge of that particular machine to understand this is the temperature, this is the pressure. Okay, and these things has to make some kind of knowledge so that it can be used by some organizations for making some tailor-made products for the customers, right? So these are all different aspects of 5G and all. So will be crucial for self-driving cars, help in linking and controlling robots, but also boost for the efficiency of medical devices. You know about the different kinds of networks, like starting with, before the talk, Praveen was asking me, like, sir, IoT, what is the difference between WSN and IoT? Already WSN is already there. So why we are actually giving a separate name for that? Usually these kinds of naming ceremonies happening during IEEE ComSoc kind of avenues. Whenever a major, a senior IEEE member comes in and he will be working on certain area, then along with some other Nokia kind of communication partners, they will provide a new name, new terminology, because everyone is now behind the buzzwords, right? Everyone, like machine learning, neural networks was there, but may not be so fascinated. The name is not so catchy. So people name it to different sense, but everything old wine, the new bottle, right? So again, IoT, you know that there are certain differences. I'm not blaming that name actually, because wireless sensor networks, they do not normally communicate with the internet. We will put some kind of wireless sensor networks in some area for physical understanding like agriculture. We will be putting in the flying drones or some helicopters. We'll be putting these kind of sensors into some agricultural area for understanding what is the soil moisture, what kind of crop can be cultivated in that particular land and all. So we know that the major drawback in these kinds of devices is the power efficiency, power consumption, right? So we need mechanisms like sleeping mode mechanisms and all, so that they need to understand what exactly that they're capturing and how long it has to capture. Because we know that normally this IoTs and all, we are using IoT because we do want to reduce the human efforts, because we are creating some IoT network. It has to function at least for some 10 years. So we cannot go and frequently recharge the batteries of IoT there. Okay, so these are just one of the physical problems associated with this kind of network. So wireless sensor networks, these sensing and processing was there. So that's why we call it as modes, MOTES, modes. It is not nodes. In computer network and all, we call this as a node. But in wireless sensor network, it's a mode, MOTE. That is, you're sensing it, processing it to some level. Some minimum storage capacity will be there. Okay, so modes, but it never talk to each other through internet. So when internet comes in, so many use cases developed and so many challenges also developed along with use cases, because internet, you know, it's a heterogeneous network. A lot of security challenges are there, right? So here the master brain behind this 5G is the wave communication. That is millimeter wave communication, millimeter wave. So 5G is getting that speed. So what is the speed of 5G actually? You know, what is the speed of 5G? Speed of 5G? No. 10 Gbps is fine, but normally the theoretical assumption is it has to deliver a speed from 30 Gbps to 100 Gbps. So that's why I told you it is like 30 times, 25 or 30 times faster than 4G. Okay, but you know that the true 5G, it delivers only up to 25 Mbps. Okay, so then wave, because of this millimeter wave communication only, this particular technology can deliver this kind of high speeds. Because millimeter wave, the spectrum is between, say like 30 gigahertz to 300 gigahertz. Spectrum of millimeter wave communication is 30 gigahertz to 300 gigahertz. But if we are using millimeter wave communication for IoT communication, for IoT infrastructure, the maximum possibility is up to some 84 to 100. That is 30 to 84 to 100. That has been, according to the theoretical studies and all, that is the exact or the adaptable or a good range for IoT applications, 30 gigahertz to maximum of about 85 to 100 maximum. But we have 300 gigahertz and millimeter, you know that the short waves of some 1 millimeter to 5 millimeter. That's a length of that wave. What? That actually the wave, you know that the relationship between the frequency and the wavelength, right? And also like technologies like NOMA is there. It is not like simply wave can deliver that speed, but along with some assistive techniques like non-orthogonal multiple access kind of techniques are there, which works along with this millimeter wave to provide such kind of a data range. Okay, but since this workshop is not on that particular aspect, I'm not spending much time on that, because if I need to give a kind of respect to this particular workshop, I need to cover some topics on security side also. Okay, so low band. So here the 5G can cover 3 different bands. That is low band, mid band, and the high band frequencies. Low band means less than 6 gigahertz. Mid-band means 6 gigahertz to some 25 gigahertz, and above 25 gigahertz to 100 gigahertz is the maximum capacity. So it can work in 3 different bands: low band, mid band, and high band. And this is not possible with the earlier generations. Okay. So here you can see massive MIMO is there, multiple input, multiple output antennas we are using. Network, I told you about the network slicing or network densification is there, and IoT capabilities it can meet. Then artificial intelligence and machine learning. So these are the different transformation elements for this 5G technology to fully utilize its potential. So the other solutions for 5G solutions for IoT is, in order to provide a low latency, we are having a technology known as technique known as URLLC, that is ultra reliable low latency communication, which is critical for all sensitive data transmission, like your health data, your like autonomous car driving data, which are all very critical because these are all like real-time traffic. Real-time traffic and healthcare, we know that there are 3 different types of traffic normally. If you're wearing a smartwatch, it is just like normal traffic. But if you're wearing a smartwatch for some 2,500, there is only normal traffic. See, if you're wearing some Apple watches kind of thing, then there is a kind of thing known as on-demand traffic. That is, you can connect this particular Apple watch into some medical personnel, and he can actually trigger what is the kind of traffic, like health data, your heartbeat data or second data that a period of time. So such a kind of traffic is also there. So ultra reliable latency communication is normally preferred for real-time traffic, real-time, sensitive traffic, like the health informations or the traffic informations, etc. Okay. Then smart city, we need to manage traffic more efficiently. We cannot compromise on latency. For that, we are using URLCC along with 5G. Prevent congestion and warning of accidents ahead, benefiting road users and all. Then smart home applications like online gaming, AR, VR device, because we cannot wait for, yes. Ultra reliable in the sense because we are in the V2V kind of networks, or the vehicle to vehicle communication, vehicle to infrastructure communication. Reliability is more needed, so that they're providing a low latency communication with the ultra reliability means there is less drop of information in that particular communication, less drop of information. Data packets will be like you will be getting better packet delivery ratio, better throughput. So that's why it's called ultra reliable. And also like, yes. Ultra reliability is also there with latency. Latency means less than 10 milliseconds. Less than 10 milliseconds. Okay, this is latency here. Then another kind of solutions for non-public networks like private network and all. So here I told you we do have a we have the facility to establish a private network in the campus. We already got that license from telecommunication Indian Telecommunication Union. So we got that 5G license for that. So in private networks, we have different frequency ranges. So now we are concentrating only on the 300 to 3000 megahertz range, because we do not have sufficient hardware devices to work on these 25 gigahertz or 30 gigahertz range. So we have some boards from Kottayam company, which works on these ranges, 300 to 3000 megahertz. Okay. Private networks. Then these are some of the other things, like here you can see 5G NRC V2X. If you're reading IEEE magazines and all, you could find this term often. If you're referring Internet of Vehicles and all, you could find 5G NRC V2X. What is that? CV2X? It is like, yeah, vehicle to anything. V2X means vehicle to anything. This is like V2I, vehicle to infrastructure, vehicle to pedestrian, vehicle to vehicle, V2V communication. So that X means it can be replaced with the vehicles infrastructures, peoples, pedestrians, etc., etc. So 5G NR means a different new radio. That spectrum is very new here. So that's why they have given the name as 5G NR. And there are different releases for that. The latest release is 5G NR release 16, I think. Release 16 with the CV, several patches. Sufficient updates are needed on security aspects also. So several patches are there. So the new release is 5G NR release 16. Then mobile wave evolution, unlicensed spectrum. Then massive IoT. You know that these kinds of devices normally work almost we call it unlicensed spectrum. What is an unlicensed spectrum? Any idea? Yes, you cannot take any legal violation against if you're using some frequency ranges like 2.4 gigahertz or 5.2 gigahertz and all. Because these are all ISM band frequencies. That is the industrial, scientific, and medical band. So if you're doing some research on that particular area, you can use that band. So it is ISM band frequency, unlicensed spectrum. Massive IoT means different varieties of devices we can coordinate through this 5G platform. Then broadcast. So 3GPP is the actually the research interest group working on standardizing these things. 3GPP. Okay, like you're having the POP3 kind of thing. Sorry, not the POP3. Your JPEG, MPEG, moving experts group and all working on primarily on that area. So similarly, your 5G or similar kind of standardization, we have a separate research group that is a 3GPP. I think I'm running out of time. So expanding our EMBB solutions beyond the smartphone. So you can see like you can experience 5G over mobiles. You're now in Kerala, everywhere we are having AI cameras and all. So you can attach these kind of technologies with the AI cameras, then expand device education, Internet of Education, IoE. You can leverage 5G, expand mobile gaming, cloud gaming, extended reality. I know that you have heard about terminologies like AR, VR, MR and all, augmented, then your virtual reality, your mixed reality. Okay, then this is extended reality. Beyond that particular experience, immersive user experience, that's the term that they're calling, immersive user-rich experience. You cannot identify whether you are in the virtual world or physical world. That gap is much reduced in the case of extended reality. In virtual reality and all, you know that you are wearing that glass and you are now into a digital platform and you're now experience a digital world. Some gap is there, but yeah, metaverse, yes. This is the extended reality, okay? Then expand EMBB to vehicles with CV2X, then reaches without small cell solutions. So you know that in communication architecture and all, we are having macro cells and all, pico cells, okay? So here we are using actually pico cells in 5G. 10 power minus 15 is the coverage, 10 power minus 15. So expand reach with our small cell solutions, then enhanced mobile broadband, that is EMBB, enhanced mobile broadband. So different services. So I'm just walking through the other few slides. So disclaimer, this is not prepared by me. These slides have been copied from NASCOM website. Okay. So indoor experiences, indoor, outdoor venues, transportation hubs and all. So enhanced mobile broadband, you can see what is the latency here. For security cameras, we are having a latency like 50 millisecond, but here you can see an automated guided vehicles. Okay, in cargo ship handling or cargo handling and all, we are having a lot of AGVs there. Their latency is 20 milliseconds. So each and every entity or application use cases demands a different level of service. So previous network cannot actually adapt to these kinds of, there is no such flexibility available. So that's why 5G is getting such kind of a hype. So that's why I given the title as Beyond the Hype. There were no more science fictions. Okay, so latency 20 milliseconds. Then here industrial robot, see the latency is 1 millisecond. A different latency. For handheld terminal, again 10 minutes. So several user ends demands different levels of performance parameters, okay, like latency, availability, rate, etc. So availability is obviously 99.9%. Every time we need to get services out of it. This is a basic need. If you're having some cloud entity, we need to get some kind of service out of it almost all the time, 24/7, 365 days. So 99.99% is a minimum kind of availability expectations from these networks. Okay, so we have already seen about, this is a time sensitive networking, because sometimes you know that if some security breaches happens, one thing is the particular device has to perish itself. A suicide itself, the device suiciding itself, because those devices are more like a context aware, situation aware. So it understands that there is some malicious activity which has hindered into the particular system. Now I do not have sufficient security mechanisms to avoid such things. So at that point of time, the device itself will go for a complete switch off condition, perishing. So this is known as a time sensitive kind of networking. So one of the examples, time sensitive networking. Okay, because it should be context aware, situation aware, and timely response. Okay, then other things, private, licensed, shared, and unlicensed spectrum, capabilities of new use cases and all. So here, that's why I told you about the V2V, what is the unified connectivity fabric. So here you can see all the cars are communicating with each other. Then it was communicating to infrastructure, V2I, vehicle to vehicles, vehicle to nearby traffic lights and all. So this is one of the use cases in V2V communication, vehicle to vehicle communication. So previously it was called as vehicular ad hoc network, VANET. Now we have moved into M2M, machine to machine. Even we are having, we call Facebook kind of thing as Internet of People. New terminology, IOP. And IOE is also there, replacing education with everything, Internet of everything. Okay, so RSU, so this is not the normal traffic controllers that we are seeing in our Indian roads. This is a roadside unit actually. Again, AI with traffic controllers makes some sense. AI with your traffic lights. So RSU is the AI-based camera. It can understand whether the people is wearing helmet or not. Nowadays, this is the major talk of the town. Okay, like are we? And we have already developed a few apps for that, like some boats. Where are the cameras nearby, right? Yeah. So again, I'm not repeating all these things. 5G, NR, new radio C, V2X. This is actually a car developed by Hyundai. Okay. Hyundai already, this is having a car, CV2X. You can just check it in YouTube, you can find. And also Honda, they're developing the same kind of cars. Sense like context aware kind of car. Okay. Nowadays, we are experiencing only like assistive driving in Volkswagen and all. You can see assistive driving cars, like triggering whether the driver is in a drowsy condition, sleeping, it will trigger the driver that you are going the wrong direction. Yeah. So again, multi-gigabit speed on device. So I think I have given sufficient time on this. If you have any doubts or clarifications on this 5G, you can just ask me. So 5G will, so many such things I'm not repeating. So I will just provide these slides to Praveen if you are interested in seeing all the slides. So this is XR, VR, AR, MR, XR, extended, etc. So 5G touching all aspects of your life. So you can see like precision agriculture. Sometimes we call it smart farming. Smart farming, then real-time shipping, smart logistics, and many such things. Okay, I'm just moving out. Communicating directly with people and things, then closer collaborations. You can see like with the help of external reality, actually one lady from Sao Paulo is communicating with the other lady in Istanbul, but they feel like they are working on the same space. This is the beauty of external reality actually. Okay, and now you can see like if you're watching some American television movies, shows at least, You can see there is one show, I'm not remembering the name of the show, that immediately they will pop up some window on the screen like, okay, do you want to buy the shoe that which is being worn by this actor or actress? If you click on that, you can just go to the correct Amazon or that kind of website, e-commerce website. So such things are also there. So bringing immersive virtual shopping experiences anywhere. Okay, so yes, so 360-degree video social sharing. Like if you're going for some parties and all, you can just go around and 360-degree video sharing. See like OMG, oh my God, it's like I'm there, right there. So such kind of experiences you can witness with the help of this 5G. So IoT, we know that again, IoT, what is the definition of IoT? So I have already talked a lot about IoT, but forgot to define IoT. So what is it? There are different levels of descriptions in internet, in textbooks and all. But in simple terms, it is just like connectivity given to several physical objects so that these physical objects can sense something, they can communicate something, they can communicate over internet. Right? So this is the normal, the fundamental understanding about IoT. You can just attach certain sensors to even to these chairs and understand when this chair was made. It's like self-describing. Because you know that if you go to the Amazon website and all, you can see self-describing sensors. The sensors will tell you what is the purpose of me, how long I will last. Okay. If I am like a smart precision agriculture kind of sensor, I will tell I cannot deploy it for some other kind of application. So such kind of self-describing nature of sensors, what is the specifications, accuracy, your reliability standards, your error value, such kind of things will be describing by the sensors. Okay, so Internet of Things, you have two different sides. The first one is connecting devices, sensing it, communication over different infrastructures. It could be like your Zigbee can be one of the communication standard. You know that in IoTs, there's a lot of demand for low power range communication technologies because we cannot often go for recharging here. So we need to take care of the, the power consumption or the energy harvesting style of these nodes. So for that, we are leveraging different kinds of technologies like Zigbee, is one kind of technology. It's a low power, low range kind of technology. We have the 6LoWPAN, we have low power wide area networks, we have Sigfox, NB-IoT, many such things are there. Okay, nowadays NB-IoT and all, they're using it for healthcare along with blockchain in order to provide much security there. So on one side, we are having the basic infrastructures, connection, sensing and communication, and other side, all about how to convert those unstructured data into, so people like Dr. Balu sir will be leveraging some models like ANOVA, ARIMA kind of thing to convert such kind of unstructured data into some structured data, and he will go for some predictive analytics, what might happen in future. So these are the kind of knowledge that I have gained. So this can be useful for generating new business use cases. New products. If you are into Facebook, if you've already explored Myntra before exploring Facebook, Facebook will tell you you are searching for some shirt. Now it is available now at a lesser rate. So this is not IoT actually, but such kind of analytics can be made with the help of IoT sensors. So data value, then human values and all. So these are the different verticals of IoT. So like consumer IoT is there, enterprise IoT is there. Those things I have marked in red color is to be addressed by 5G because a lot of room for improvement is there in healthcare, in autonomous driving, smart utilities and all. Okay, then, okay. Now coming slowly into our the assigned task of delivering a speech on security. So, so this is the typical architecture of IoT network. Okay, IoT network, where you can see three different layers. The first one is the perception layer or the hardware layer, where you are having all the hardware components like the sensors, your actuators, your microprocessor boards like AIPs, x86 architectures. So those things will cover the hardware side, where a lot of attacks are there, right? The attacks like jamming, the attacks like eavesdropping, the attacks like man in the middle attack, the attacks like tampering of devices, stealing of information from the devices, right? Such kind of things are happening at the hardware layer, the perception layer. Okay, then slowly we are having the next layer, which is the communication layer. Sometimes it is also called as the network layer. The network layer. We're having again, these kinds of spoofing attacks are there again. Again, man-in-the-middle attack can also happen in the communication part. So communication layer also having some kind of attacks. And then this is the application layer where all these things, what all the use cases that we have discussed comes in this layer, the application layer. So your cloud storage, your edge, the cloud architecture. So those things will be covering in the application layer. Okay, so mainly the entire architecture is divided into three, and we are now focusing our discussions of attacks, network attacking models, system models, etc., on these three layers: perception, network, and application. Okay, again, this is a strategic shift from a point-to-point monitoring into a heterogeneous collaborative monitoring. So here, previously, we know that we do have separate app for monitoring different processes, but nowadays these processes are communicating with each other. The truck is communicating with the fabric inside that particular truck. Okay, so like what is the temperature outside? Okay, what temperature has to be there inside the cabin? Such kind of things are communicating with different entities in a single cell itself. So that's why a strategic shift has been happened from point-to-point monitoring into this kind of a collaborative monitoring, right? With the help of internet. Different types of sensors. These are all basic, like LDR, alcohol, smoke sensors, rain and all. Then again, so these are the things that we are focusing. Physical devices and controllers. We have cryptographic encryption mechanisms like lightweight encryption mechanisms, sensor data protection, key agreement. So why we are moving towards lightweight encryption? Why cannot we go for the normal, conventional, or normally we call it traditional encryption techniques? We do have a lot of things like RSA algorithm, public key cryptographic algorithms, or RSA, or AES. Such kind of things. Why we are not leveraging or not using such kind of cryptographic techniques for IoT devices or 5G IoT enabled networks? Any idea? I know that Dr. Balu and Dr. Lindsay is an expert on this. So my question is towards public. So other than, so like why we are focusing on lightweight encryption and censored like such kind of schemes rather than the conventional or traditional schemes like RSA or any other public cryptographic algorithms? Power consumption, yes, one aspect is there. Power consumption, yes. It is purely depending upon the performance parameters, right? That is, you know that these devices are constrained devices. Okay, like constrained devices, constrained in terms of bandwidth, constrained in terms of power, constrained in terms of storage, constrained in terms of computational processes, etc., etc. You can name it. So you cannot go for traditional kinds of algorithms where we do have a lot of overhead happening there. A lot of computational complexity is there, order of some n. So that cannot handle such kind of encryption, decryption operations cannot be handled in miniature sensor devices, right? So every time as a researcher or as a, what is that? Like in the mindset of a industrial, some entrepreneur, I would say entrepreneur, he will always think like we need to go for a balanced kind of thing between security, safety, and practicality. What is the meaning of the trade-off or balance? Security means we need to provide a security. We should not open the back doors for attackers. But at the same time, you need to take care of the usability of it. Because you know that if something, like if you're going for high security kind of thing, your flexibility during emergency conditions, sometimes you need to go for some delegation kind of thing. So such kind of flexibility is not at all available in the traditional so-called high secure algorithms like your RSA or anything, AES or DES, anything. Because once it is there, they can provide high level of security, but flexibility is very minimal or zero. So, but these IoT devices, since they are deployed in different application areas, like for healthcare, if say like if some person, a patient is coming into the hospital and he actually is been consulted by some Dr. X, okay? And a particular operation has been fixed on some date, some heart surgery. But on that date, the particular Dr. X cannot attend that operation. So at that time, in terms of electronic medical records, I'm not saying that this is a physical thing, electronic medical records, that records has to be, the privileges of the user, privileges of that record has to be delegated to some other user so that the operation has to be happen on that particular day. There is no compromise on that. So some level of security has to be there, no compromise on that, but it should be flexible in nature. So that's why there are several access control models are coming up. Myself and Dr. Balu was working on that. It's known as attribute-based encryption or attribute-based access control. Previously, it was like role-based access control and all, RBAC, role-based identity-based encryption, role-based encryption, sorry, role-based access control, or the attribute-based, user attribute-based access controls and all. So these kinds of encryption, AB is, I'm not saying AB is completely perfect or a superior security or a cryptographic algorithm, but a level of security can be maintained there, but at the same time, it provides a level of flexibility. So during emergency conditions, you know that there is some concept known as a break the glass concept. You need to break the glass. In trains and all, you can see the break the glass, right? So break the glass concept is there where you need to provide a lot of delegation kind of thing without compromising the security aspect. So that's why we are using this lightweight kind of cryptographic techniques. Okay, so that minimal power is being used because it is again context aware, not that this particular algorithm is working for this application. This application have this much resources, should not use that much resources for this particular activity. So aligning resources, managing it, then controlling it. So such kind of algorithms we normally call as lightweight cryptographic algorithms. So this is a preferred kind of algorithms for all these. And also we know that nowadays we are using mobile phones for everything. We are not at all using laptops. So you need end-to-end encryption schemes for that. So where also your mobile phones cannot handle complex computations there. Overheating, many such things are there. So here you need to go for lightweight cryptographic algorithms. You know that homomorphic encryptions also, homomorphic encryptions, I'm not going to that level, homomorphic encryptions or what is that, such kind of, I'm forgetting such names. So algorithms are now coming from the usual server side kind of mode of operations into the client side, the miniature kind of device operations. Okay, so connectivity, here's a physical devices. You can again hardware problems will be there. Like you can some malicious user will be intercepting the communication by implanting certain malicious nodes there. Man-in-the-middle kind of attack, like understanding what is going in between, tracking those information, then doing some illegal activities like modifying, tampering the informations and all. So that, but the communication parties will be thinking like that communicating the actual entity, right? So these are the things in physical device controllers. Then connectivity, identity, authentication, encryption, communication security and all. Because you know that authentication, authorization, exhaustion of resources. These are all the major part of all these IoT, 5G IoT devices. Authentication is important. Who is accessing the system? Okay, whether the right people is doing the right activities, that is, whether they are going beyond that privilege level. Like, you know that in systems itself, we are having administrators, power users and all. Like power users, administrative users, normal users and all. So each and every user will be having some privilege level, but sometimes people like us, we are very curious in knowing new things. So we will be sometimes going beyond our privilege level. People will call it as hacking and all, right? So transport layer, then here transport layer, we have secure multi-party computation. Day before yesterday, Dr. Balu was talking about the bilinear pairings and all. So we have a lot of scope of bilinear pairings. I don't know that it is the right platform for discussing bilinear pairings to these. Okay, so bilinear pairings, identity-based encryption, such things are there for secure multi-party computation. Okay, so secure cloud computing, then antivirus update, these are all part of your transport layer. Then authentication and key agreement, then privacy protection, security and management. So I will be explaining these things in the coming slides. So this is a new target. And so why we are discussing all these topics? Because the top target, you can see, this is an image from Times of India. Okay. So top targets increase for 2019, then smart cities 15, financial services at that time, which is 14. The new update is not available in internet. So I just go with the 2019. Then backdoor botnets are there, password stealers and all. This is the normal. That's why Prime Minister Modi is now giving a lot of importance for cybersecurity. Because whenever this is actually the national theme, national funding theme, actually, when we are submitting something, additional, drop-down menus are coming up now. Cybersecurity is one of the important focus areas of the government. That's why universities like NFSU, RRU are coming up in northern side, Gujarat, right? National importance, focusing mainly on cybersecurity. So here, you could see the Internet of Things has expanded what is possible, IT, OT operations, then the threat activities, then these things we already covered. So a need for security in IoT. So let us go for data privacy, data security, network security, lack of standards. So these are the main issues with this IoT. So that's why people are working mainly on user data privacy. People are working on device security, like providing hardware security. You know that now these devices, these IoT devices often come with some default passwords. People like us, people like me actually are very lazy to update those passwords. We'll be using the same passwords. And this will be one of the entry points for the attackers, because a company who manufactures routers with some other kind of devices, any networking devices, or IoT, like Shimmer sensor. Okay, I will provide an example also. Shimmer sensor is one of the largest company who manufactures sensors, especially in healthcare domain. So those sensors, when they're coming up, they'll be having some default password, and this password will be the same for your activity monitor or ECG, EEG, whatever the device that you're buying from that Shimmer sensing website. The default password is this. Is one of the major the loopholes for the attackers. Okay. The second thing is we never go for some updations. Even in mobile, we most of the time they need to give some kind of notification to us to update our mobile. You know that security features are also being updating in it. So the firmware update, the software update is very much needed to avoid such kind of avoid attackers to get into that entry point. These are all entry points actually. And sometimes they will attack the gateways also. The gateways are thing, but the packet comes in and packet go out. The information comes into the network and it goes out of the network. So gateway attacks. Then device security, network security is there, lack of standards. Okay, and we'll be okay. Security and privacy issues. So here you can see like firmware hacking. The first one is a firmware hacking or hardware hacking. I told you we have 3 different layers. So hardware hacking, firmware hacking, etc. happen in one layer. So it covers exploiting the hardware device against exposed interfaces, ports, firmware extraction, because this hardware layer will give you an abstraction layer approach, right? Because you know that whenever you are buying some hardware, there will be some specifications associated with it. This specification can be one kind of tool that will be used by attackers to make an entry point, to understand what exactly is inside the network. Okay, this is not happening overnight, you know that, because people like the kind of replay attacks, functional replay attacks, what they're doing, they'll be first recording all the information, wait for the right point of time, and go for retransmitting the earlier recorded content so that they can actually convince the appropriate authority that, okay, I'm the legitimate user because I have the right, communication exchange parameters with me, right? So hardware hacking is there, then firmware hacking, analyzing the firmware, such as APIs, credentials, URLs, sensitive data, etc. So these things are very crucial when we are dealing these things with the healthcare kind of, because we are dealing with life critical information. Life critical information. So those hardware hacking and firmware hacking is more critical for these smart healthcare scenarios, because where live human sensitive data is been exchanging, life critical data. Then we have the cloud security available, because every time, you know that in W bands and all wireless body sensor networks, first these sensor networks will be, you know that these sensors will be attached to human body, biocompatible sensors. These sensors will track the human data, the important human data, and first it will be saving in the local server. So the attack happens from here itself. That is, from the module itself, there is a loop. There should be some loopholes for the attackers to get in. Again, it is been stored in a local server, right? Like your PDA, personal device assistant. It can be forwarded to, with the help of your Zigbee or Wi-Fi or whatever it may be, it could be forwarded to some other next end, to some server. Some medical person will be sitting in. And nowadays in AB and all, it is known as user-centric encryption and decryption. User-centric. You can decide who can have an access to your data. User-centric encryption. Like different levels of users will be there, like medical pass personnel, or it could be a researcher, or it could be a nurse who are an intern, or any other, say like a policy consultant, healthcare policy consultant. So every user have different privilege levels, right? So these kind of scenario, the ABAC or attribute-based access control is the right cryptographic mechanism for securing your data in the cloud. So before uploading the data in the cloud, often what we do is we will go for encryption the data. Data encrypted and forwarded to the cloud. Then you can go for decryption on the other end. But you can have different security levels in ABE. You have different variants there, like a ciphertext policy, ABE, that is ciphertext policy, then key policy, attribute-based encryption, or you have the multi-authority attribute-based encryption, or single authority. You know that if you could compromise one single server, like we call it as a trusted authority, right? The hospitals, Splinter issue, you know that all Carolites will be knowing the Splinter, their contract, right? So we are trusting the hospitals. So hospital will be the trusting authority, and they will be issuing the, in cryptographic system, they'll be issuing the different keys for different users, managing the users, updating the user keys and all. Key generation centers. So in the case of ABAC and all, you can use different kinds of electronic gates like NOT or OR. NOT gates or OR gates at different levels. Level 1 or level 2 can be there. Like a tree-based hierarchical kind of a structure. Like you are having some Dr. X and a Dr. Y can have an access, but not a Dr. Z, or not a Dr. Intern, a Dr. Intern. And you can again go for the next level. Dr. Intern who have not completed 1 year in the campus. So such kind of dense level, that is miniature level your encryption can be go up to that particular depth level actually for this kind of attribute-based encryption. So that's why earlier I told you this ABE is more suitable for many of these kinds of smart healthcare applications. Okay. So here you can see communication. It can happen with different protocols: MQTT, ZigBee, BLE, and COP. What is that MQTT? MQTT. Yes, what is that actually? So we know that different communication model architectures are there. It is like a publish subscribe model kind of thing, or like client server architecture or peer-to-peer connection network. So here is a publish subscribe. You're publishing the, if you have a data owner, you will be publishing your data in the cloud and with some tags, So people who are interested in that tags will use that data, subscribe it and use it. So MQTT is normally we are using MQTT kind of technique to upload your data from your device into the cloud. Okay, and COAP is a constrained protocol actually. These kinds of devices, because we know that nowadays in these time-sensitive operations, we are not going for cloud-side operations. We are mimicking the activities of cloud towards the edge. So that's why edge computing. Many of the researchers are now working on edge computing. Why? Because you need to get an immediate response. There is no time. There should not be a time delay to go to the cloud and coming back. Okay, because processing. So edge, where could be the edge? The server will be sitting just besides or just in that particular data generation side itself, so that you can get the processed data without any delay. That is edge computing. Okay, so or sometimes IBM calls it fog computing, right? Again, all these things are so lack of robust security issues. So IoT devices are connected because a lot of openness is in there in the network. So that's why we call it either connected to the system like desktop or smartphone. So one of the major problems of this IoT is with that a lot of openness is there, right? Because any people can just connect to the internet with kind of sensor and go for a data exchange. A lot of openness is there. This dynamicity actually is a double-edged sword actually. The double-edged sword actually, because one side you're having a lot of services, the other side you're just opening the doors for hackers, right? Because almost all the IoT devices, they're very cheap in nature, these temperature sensors and all, because the company cannot devote enough resources to protect the security of that product, because that itself comes with some few bucks of rupees. So they cannot invest in that. So that's why it is the responsibility of researchers like you to come up with some novel solutions. But again, preserving the communication overhead, the power overhead and all. Because nowadays, you know that there is some attack on side channel attacks. They are just monitoring what? Power transmission, then timing. So this happens on the fabrication side itself. While a sensor is been fabricating, that itself, attacker is now trying with the side channel kind of thing. They're just modifying the circuitry itself. So that if you're buying something from the XYZ kind of company, that comes with some kind of precision, some kind of accuracy and all, but just you're inviting hackers that, okay, my data is here. Now you are having all the right to control me. Okay, so IoT devices connected system, desktop or smartphone. Lack of security mechanisms improves the threat of leakage of personal data. The collected and transmitted data of IoT devices may be disclosed. So I already explained many such things. So openness is one of the problem. Privacy of sensitive data. So you know that different levels of attacks are there, like a replay, impersonation. What is that impersonation? Spoofing, impersonation, then password guessing, right? These kind of attacks are normally there. Then sensitive data may be leaked through unauthorized access and manipulations. You know that I told you, whenever we are building a security architecture, we have two different models. The first model will be a system model. The second one will be what? If you're building a secure IoT, there will be two different models. First, you will be building that model. For that, you need system model. System model consists of what, like who are the authority, or there is no authority, then also, okay, no problem, distributed kind of network. How many users are there, right? And what are the responsibility of those different entities who are participating in a network? So this all constitutes a system. So that's why if you're doing some project and all, process will ask you, what is the system model? Because you cannot build a massive structure without any model, right? So basic foundation, you need to tell that these are the system, these are the constituents, these are the different elements of the bigger system and all. Then you go for the second thing. If you're concentrating more on security aspect, you go for what? The second model, the threat model or the attacker model. For that, in people like Dr. Balu will be using so many game kind of analysis, like between the attacker and the adversary and a challenger, probability kind of attacks. Okay, in AB and all, we do a lot of attacks like bilinear assumption, complexity assumptions are there. So we are using a lot of gaming. So as if you are a good cryptographer, you want to think like an attacker, right? You need to think like an attacker. That's why people like Balu, why I am mentioning Balu means because he is a mathematician with a huge criminal mindset. Okay, because he's BTech, MTech, and all those like entry levels were in mathematics, so he know how to play with the numbers and those algebras and all, polynomials and all. But after he get into the PhD, he explored almost all the parts of the cryptography. So you know that if you look into the World War I and II, you can find the most important hackers were these kind of Dr. Balus were there at that time. So during World War I and II. So a little bit excited. What were we mentioning? Threat model, yes. So threat model, you need to understand what are the loop points, where the threat can happen. Okay, where could be the entry point? So you need to think about, so there are different models for that. DY model, one popular model, I will, first I will go that and yeah. So threat model, you can find one models as like DY threat model. So the guidelines are like disseminating through an open, insecure communication. In IoT or any kind of wireless communication architecture, the fundamental notion itself is we are transmitting your sensitive, important, whatever the data, it is through an insecure channel. The channel is always insecure. So that's why we are always getting a curve of performance graph as your final end semester graph, like a Bell model. Okay, so this is not Gaussian process, Gaussian channels. Every time we are transmitting some information X, an additional N will be added on to it, X plus N. And it is the duty of your expertise and your knowledge to how to, model that error models. You have, okay, this is not an easy communication class, but you should understand there are certain fading models like a Rishian model, Rayleigh channel model. These are all like predictive, it is a simulation model to understand how this error, what's the kind of impact this kind of an error can make to your original information. So this is, the error could be replaced with the attack. How much damage can happen to your system and to your network? So think like an attacker to build a secure system. So here we have a model like DY, the terminus nodes functioning as cloud fork servers, not in general trustworthy. And here, if you're working on semantic security, then people will say like the assumptions, there are certain assumptions, like your model is just like, most of the time, your server is functioning in a honest mode. But you know that even our Google servers are untrusted, right? But we give the notion as all these trusted authority. That's the meaning of trusted authority. Authority is trusted, no problem. Even we are using our even our private chats through this Google, this WhatsApp and all, and everything is saying by Sundar Pichai and the other end, right? But we are already giving all the policy statements, agreed. So uh, I just what was mentioning actually. Yes, trustworthy. So here the assumption model is just like most of the time your servers are honest in nature. They will function to certain rules and regulations, but there is a small statement like they're very curious in learning things. So that curiosity is again an attack. So that's why we are now going for certificate-less authority. Previously, it was like certificate authority. That is, if you're buying some digital signature token from eMudra and all, they will provide you with some certificates along with that particular device. That is trusted certificate. Those people who are using, having that certificate is assumed to be like trusted users, right? But such kind of notion is nowadays is not, it's like absurd, I think. That's why people are going for certificate-less kind of servers, leveraging identity-based encryptions, pairing-based cryptography, bilinear assumptions and all. So disseminate, so DY model, one of the threat models that we're using in this IoT 5G scenarios. The other one is a CK advisory model, the de facto standard model. So it has all the capabilities of DY model. That is, the adversary can handle secret credentials. These are threat models. Okay, so we are assuming that the attacker can handle secret credentials, session states, session keys in sessions and all. But in addition to that, it can also capture the IoT devices physically. They can go for a power analysis attack like your side channel attack to extract your stored information, enabling the launch of attacks such as identity, password, session key computations and all. Okay, these are all physical attacks actually. So you know about, if you go to the network layer and all, we are having problems like wormhole, black hole, gray hole, such kind of attacks are also already there. So this adversary model can even create a new malicious devices with additional attack functions like wormhole attack models, black hole attack models, gray hole models and all. So what's understanding on this? What is a black hole? It's not related with your astronomical kind of thing. It's black hole attack. So what is a black hole attack? Again, malicious nodes. Because if I am proposing a new malicious node for the next time, I will go for some green hole because I like the color green. So I will go for green hole then. So black hole actually what they do is, this is actually malicious node which intercepts or which get into that network. Okay. And then it advertises that, yes, see, I'm having all the resources and I will go through the shortest route to the destination. But when the packet comes, it will just drop the packets or it will reroute the packets to some other, because the function is attacking only, right? So it will reroute to some other non-intended recipients. Okay. So this is the black hole. The other one, what is that? Gray hole? Black and gray. Gray is again just like a black only, but selective packets. Not every packet. Selective packets will be forwarded to the unintended parties or modifications and tampering and all. Then we are having other thing known as wormhole. What is a wormhole? Yes, because in wormhole, normally what they do is some two nodes comes into the network, okay, as partners in crime. Two nodes. These are two malicious nodes actually. So they first what we do is, in cinemas and all, you know that in Malayalam cinemas you can see people who are digging the canals and all to get into some banks and all, like the locker rooms. they're using some tunnels for that. So here also, what the wormhole do is, these two parties will create a tunneling channel first, a malicious channel, and again convince all the parties a new communication channel has been established. Everything is fine here. You can have a present stay, and then you can forward to the next immediate destination. Okay, so in that way, it will create a tunnel, is again a malicious tunnel. Again, any illegal activity can happen. Okay, this is a wormhole. So black hole, wormhole. So this adversary, CK adversary model is a best model for such kind of attacks. So you can see such kind of things in early I think in 2002, 2001 itself, because the mobile ad hoc networks came. Normally people were behind these wormhole, black hole attacks and all, because ultimately in order to submit your PhD or MTech thesis, you need to provide certain graphs for that. So these wormhole, black hole kind of, what is that, double beauties, they will give us some kind of graphical representations. Like you can create a network in NS2 or NS3 or some kind of simulation scenario. You can put something like, if you're having some 100 nodes, you'll be considering 40 nodes, like 60-40 ratio. 60 nodes will be like pakka, honest nodes, and the 40 nodes is illegal, malicious, country fellows, those nodes. So these 40 nodes is our actually the bread and butter to convince our supervisor, because we will be just increasing the number of nodes, decreasing the number of nodes and all, and then we'll be providing graphs like routing overheads increased if we move from 40% to 50%. And it is not actually funny, because we know that there are different algorithms for that. So one algorithm which is coming to my mind is a triple net acknowledgement algorithm, because every triple node will be giving an acknowledgement back. Because in a communication network consists of some 200 to 250 nodes, it is not advisable to get acknowledgement from each and every node. So we can go for triplet node acknowledgement, like 1, 2, 3. The third node will be coming back and giving acknowledgement, so that you can reduce the routing overhead and time delay. And again, some improvisation, some restructuring happens on network. They come up with some sectors. We call it as clusters, cluster heads and all, cluster computing, cluster heads. Then cluster head cannot communicate, so we call this area bounded routers, ABR. So such things are there. So these wormhole, black holes, etc., they were there. So my intention is to give you that these topics are not new actually. These things are there in 2001. You can find a lot of papers in Manets and all who are working on this particular area, black holes. So, so we have a security protocols like key management protocols, authentication, user authentication protocols, access protocols, intrusion detection protocols and all, right? So these are the different phases of a key management protocol. So I told you, we need to have a system model first. So system model in perspective of key management. So here, first we go for a pre-deployment phase. Pre-deployment phase means like who are the the sending parties, who are the receiving parties, who are the communication facilitators. So the authority will be setting up certain things. These are the parties like IoT devices here, user devices, users and other similar devices. So these are all a part of a pre-deployment phase. We are just initiating the setup. The second one is the key generation and distribution. Here we are using different cryptographic keys, some secret keys for network entities that are generated and distributed by trusted, I told you again, trusted authority. So normally some textbooks we call it the KGCs, key generation centers, or it could be like, what is that? A global certificate authority, GCA, different names. Okay, different names are there, global certificate authority or certificate authority, or it could be key generation centers. So they will give these kind of secret keys, session keys and all for different parties using either using a symmetric key cryptography, or it could be a public key cryptographic method. Then we have the other one, which is a beauty, which is a key revocation and dynamic device addition. So you know that here, usually user keys are having some expiration timer. In some papers you could see, or some deployment models you could see, every user key coming with some expiration timer is there. You can use this key for a particular duration. Or some otherwise, if you need to go for a key updation, what you do is you will not update the key of that intended, the so-called malicious user, and you will update all other keys. One user key will be like kept unattended, and other user keys will be going for updation. So if you go for, again, go for logging into system, if I'm going out of this, not like this, if I'm going out of this particular organization, then if I'm trying again to use my credentials here, you'll say like it is already done. You're out of this particular institution, right? So such kind of things is a key revocation, a dynamic device addition, then key establishment. So after the completion of this registration happened here and deployment of different network entities, the entities proceed for key establishment process by the help of exchange messages. So here you can go for several exchanges like Shamir secret sharing schemes, or it could be like a Diffie-Hellman assumptions and all. You can go for such kind of exchange schemes, key exchange schemes, without providing your user identities. Then phases of user device authentication protocol. So these are different phases. So key management, then the device authentication protocol. So here you can see, again, a deployment phase, system setup and deployment. Then since it is associated with user, the user has to be registered first, then give the credentials, then authentication and key agreement, right? Then password and biometric updates, such kind of things, and dynamic device addition. You know that in many nowadays in IoT devices and all, what we usually follow is a multi-factor like cryptographic schemes, or we call two-factor schemes are there. In Gmail and all, you often see that if you're using your Gmail from a different computer, it asks for a two. If you are enabled that particular provision, you go for a two-factor scheme. So in the case of IoT devices, we go for a multi-factor schemes, multi-factor, more security, right? So dynamic. So these are different phases of user device authentication. So then phases of different access control protocol. Like I told you, we have both certificate-based access protocol is there and certificate-less protocol. So one of the examples for the certificate-based access control is X.509. Okay, which is you can see a lot of models based on this certificate-based access control models. If you're providing a trust authority there, in certificate-less authority, the thing is I told you the kind of cryptographic schemes that we're using in certificate-less is the IB or the bilinear assumptions and all, where you know that the key generation center will be providing a partial key and the user will be having the next key, the other half of the key. So certificate-less access control schemes are normally, if you can find a lot of IoT use cases, you could find these kind of certificate-less access control schemes available. Device authentication phase and key establishment phase. So a newly deployed device will be having a device authentication phase, and these things we have already seen in this particular phase, user device authentication control. Then we go for intrusion detection mechanisms, IDS. You know that IDS, we have different IDS schemes, like you have that network-based IDS systems, host-based IDS systems, behavioral-based IDS systems, etc. 1127, right? So IDS is one of the areas that you can explore for providing a security in 5G IoT networks. Okay, where you know that this IDS will be providing certain generic rules and regulations. If someone is breaking that, that will be considered as malicious activity. Commonly used user authentication protocols. So these are the existing access control protocols in IoT: RBAC, ABAC, policy-based access control, capability-based access control, attribute-based encryption, IBE, and lightweight cryptographic mechanisms. So these are the future research challenges. Like you can work on security, privacy, and a lot of scope is there for scalability, then reliability part. So a lot of slides are there. So these are directions for your future work. Like you need to go for enhancing security mechanisms, like developing new robust authentication mechanisms, encryption mechanisms and all, but you need to take care of the power consumption, memory and other things. Then privacy preserving techniques. You can also come up with some novel techniques on AI with this IoT, especially on the cloud server edge computing side. If you want to convert the raw data into some useful knowledge, you need to like handhold technologies like AI, ML and all. So these works will be concentrating on cloud side. Okay, but along with it, you can concentrate on security. If you're working on a PhD project, one of the chapters could be like security on cloud, but you can go for some federated models and all in AI, federated models in AI. So edge computing, utilizing edge computing. So people like one of the researcher, Mr. Akarsh, is working on this area here in edge computing area, especially on edge security. Okay, so these are the different directions for future work. So that's it. So this is, I understand that I have given just fundamental understanding about all these networks to just understand what are the fun things on this 5G IoT platform and what are the usual attacks happening. So whatever attacks which has been happening on internet, it also affects IoT. That's the conclusion. Yeah, thank you.